Hey, Southeast Missouri sports fans. Enjoy the show and want to take it on the go? You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Tune in as they air by searching SEMO Sports Zone wherever you may be listening. Welcome to the SEMO Sports Zone presented by A-Corp Sports. I don't know if you can tell by my voice, but we've had kind of a rough week with the Bloomfield Christmas Tournament going on. Dave, how are we doing today?
Doing just fine. A lot better than your voice. I've worked a lot less than you have this week, but man, it's been a great Bloomfield Christmas Tournament. Kind of a unexpected first two nights with no upsets, and then you had three upsets on the third night. But yeah, it's been a great turnout for the tournament, great games in the tournament, and it's been a lot of fun, and we still have one night to go.
Yeah, the first thing I can say about it is I have been baffled by the amount of people I've been seeing at this tournament. And typically, Bloomfield's always full around night 3, night 4, but night 1 and 2 also just so many people there. And it's great to see everybody coming out for their athletes.
Yeah, it is. And, I've been going to this tournament again since '84. I can't remember a night 2 where they had to pull out the bottom bleachers. That's the first time I remember that. I'm sure there has been, but I certainly don't remember it. And, man, it's just been a great turnout. I mean, even these consolation games are really, really good games, and teams are just fighting. I mean, the energy that Bloomfield brought, in the consolation semifinal the other day was just, they were just after it. And they were a team that was just really getting after it, wanting to win. And you don't always see that from your consolation semifinals and stuff like that. But man, it's been a lot of fun, this tournament. And, again, we got one more night to go.
Yeah, I think kind of encapsulating the season at this point, we talk about parity a lot, but in this tournament especially, it's been there because there's been no game that I've looked at and I'd said, oh, that's an easy game. Even if a team lost, you tell they played the entire time, and I think it's the atmosphere one, and then I don't know, it's just this prestige of this tournament that I feel like brings out that competitiveness in all of these teams that show up.
I mean, you look at the scores of this tournament. I mean, there's really been very few blowouts. I mean, most of these games are 10 points or less. Have kind of went down to the wire. I mean, you've had a couple of blowouts on day one, which you kind of always expect. But really, since then, I mean, there's really only been like one blowout, two blowouts. I would consider blowouts, since then, and both of those games are kind of have asterisks because players on the other team were hurt. And, they weren't at full force. So, I mean, it's been a really well-played tournament. We were talking about the seedings, the coaches. Well, we should have waited to seed them a week later or whatever. But I think the coaches got it pretty, they were pretty close on these seedings. As there's a reason they're coaches, and we're here behind the mic.
Yeah, what do we know? Just very competitive games. That the tournament up until this point has just been like completely standard for the bracket. I think that's one of the craziest things. Obviously, that switched up last night, but it's what are the chances of that happening?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you look at some of the injuries in this tournament. I mean, there's been some key players on some teams that got injured in this tournament too. Mm-hmm. That's something that you see one here or there, but not this number. I mean, and I think it's partially related to how hard these teams are playing. I mean, these teams are really getting after it. These are really close games, and you give that extra effort. Sometimes you get a little dinged up and hurt and just some injuries in this tournament. But man, it's been a lot of fun and there's been some really, really good games that are just going to be, you think, well, nothing's going to top that game. And then the next night you have another one that's better. Yeah.
So just kind of going down the list, what's been one of the games that stand out to you?
To me, the game that stands out the most is that Dexter Risco game. I mean, obviously that game went down to the wire. A lot of attention was on that game. Kind of the large school versus small school. And I think you had a large school that did not want to lose to a small school, and a small school that was trying to knock off the big school. And you had a lot of fan interest in that game. It was a well-played game. kind of surprising up and down, very entertaining game. And a well-coached game from both teams. And, Dexter just found a way to finish and Risco didn't. And that's just kind of what I think it came down to. But both teams played their guts out and played hard and just a really, really nice game to cap off night 2 of that tournament.
Yeah, I think overall that game it had such weight to it. And you could tell as soon as both teams came out and the pop from the crowd, it was just kind of an electric situation. And overall, it didn't go exactly how I thought it was going to. I pegged Risco to win that game, I don't want to say easily, but handily. And, Dexter's ability to play to their opponent, I never really expected that to happen. Sammy Smith also had a quiet game that game. This was kind of Owen Fortner's coming out party for that game. But, both teams, like you said, played their guts out and just really explosive play that – I think that was the difference maker is up tempo the whole game.
Yeah.
And I just can't believe either team had anything left in the tank the next night.
Yeah, absolutely. And they both had extra in the tank. But yeah, I mean, Dexter came out in that game, and kept up the tempo. And I was very surprised with that. And I thought Geatley did a tremendous job on Sammy Smith. I thought he was kind of his coming out party in this tournament. I think he's been the key for Dexter's run is Geatley. And the way he's guarded, he's hit some really big shots. He's taking care of the ball. He's just done a lot of really nice things for them, and he's only a sophomore, but he's a really, really good player. But I was really surprised with the way he guarded Smith and kind of held him down. And then you have, Fortner, he just could not miss, and Dexter for some reason at some points just forgot about him. Mm-hmm. And, I think maybe, you were concentrating so much on Smith that you left him. And then all of a sudden he's got 30 points in 3 quarters. And it's like, we might need to do something with him. And I think Dexter finally decided, hey, we're going to guard Smith and Fortner and make these other guys beat us. And if they do, they do. And they didn't. And that was a good coaching move from Dexter. But I was very surprised with the tempo. And then, like you said, you thought both teams would be done, and then you come out the next night and both of them put on just great performances the next night. So hats off to Dexter and Risco right now.
Yeah, it was such an amazing game. And that's been this whole tournament is just like, you could pick any game out of a hat and just say awesome game. And, kind of going back to like Kennett Bernie, like that's another just down to the wire game that I wasn't expecting either. I had Bernie winning that game. I was kind of shaky on it going into it. Bernie has some key injuries. And Kennett did throughout that game too. It's just and you hate that that's what determines a win for a team. And you know what? We never know how the ball bounces either. Number 3 on Kennett. His name escapes me at this moment.
Dyson Watson.
Yeah. Him going down for Kennett, I think, was kind of a key injury. Yeah. But at the same time, Kennett had chances to win that game without him.
Yeah, you got to make free throws.
Yeah, you got to make free throws.
And they should have won the game without him. I mean, they should have. You hit your free throws, you win that game, you move on. Now, we saw the next night, they are not the same team without Dyson Watson. They're just not. I mean, and I think they win that game, maybe even double figures, over Bernie with Dyson Watson. They were making their run, and they had all the momentum behind them, during that, whenever he got hurt. They had everything going their way. And Dyson was, he's a very streaky player. He was getting hot. And then he goes down and, all of a sudden you got to play the fourth quarter without him. And they were you could just tell they were just trying to hang on to win, just trying to hang on. And then, the next night you found out, I mean, they just don't have any scoring without him. They're trying to find somebody to score. They brought the freshman off the bench, I believe Perry. I mean, he's a really good player. Brought him off the bench, but he's a freshman and, he's just not ready for that yet. But I mean, you just don't have the scoring. And I think that kind of determined that game. But then at the same time, Bernie had the same thing happen the next night. When you're missing your 2 guards and you're trying to play Puxico, even though Puxico, I don't think has played very well in this tournament. I've not been impressed with Puxico in this tournament. I've been very impressed with Landon Burchard. Yeah. But nobody else for Puxico is really stepping up. And I think that, and I know they're better than that. They're a much better team than that, but they just haven't played like it so far.
It is a strange thing to think about because I kind of did note that to a couple people that I talked to at the tournament itself, is that Landon Burchard's getting a lot of play, and it seems like his supporting cast is kind of taking a back role. Which, you know what, you're still winning games, you're still moving on, it's all great. But I'm kind of curious as to like why do they feel more like fill-ins? Because you've got these seniors that are so experienced too, but at the same time, I think that's part of Fernetti's plan. Is get your focus on Burchard because you've got those weapons in the back. Once people stop putting their eyes on them, it's like then you can use them kind of their full extent. And maybe he's going to bring that out against Dexter, tomorrow. But I see where you're coming from. I feel like Puxco's still got a lot in the tank. There's no reason to think that they can't win this game against Dexter.
Oh, no. Yeah, I mean,
and
absolutely.
They play great. What I think the biggest thing everybody said about Bernie was that, and Bernie did it to Kennett, is they played him very slow, very defensively. It didn't work on Puxco.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, Puxco put pressure on their guards, and when your two best guards are sitting on the bench and your bench is, I mean, you're basically playing six guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough. I thought Bernie did everything they could do. They were in that game in the first half. They just kept hanging around, but at some point you're just going to run out of gas. And I think that's kind of what happened with Bernie. It was just the defense on the guards, and you just if you don't have your two main ball handlers against a team like Puxco, you're going to struggle, and that's just what happened.
I don't want to shot call too much either, but Bernie is a very young team.
Absolutely.
And if this is how well they're doing as sophomores, they're going to be a menace in the next 2 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Coach Long's going to coach these guys up too, and this. They're not winning this tournament, but at the same time, they're getting some great experience. And the same thing can be said for a couple of these. I mean, Dexter, they've only got one senior on their roster. I mean, they're making a run to the championship game. And usually you kind of lean senior heavy in these tournaments because they've been there, they've experienced the big crowds and the atmosphere and everything. But this year, the younger guys in a lot of instances are kind of stepping up and having some big games. It's like, sometimes they don't know any better. And sometimes that's a good thing.
Yeah. And kind of what do you think, just to talk about like crowd, how you handle expectations, do you think our inductees have kind of dealt with that now, especially like Risco, what they had to deal with in their game against Dexter, that kind of crowd? Do you think they're kind of more adapting to it? Because obviously they played a much different game against Van Buren. Yeah.
And I mean, I think that for Risco, it was a benefit that they played Bloomfield out of the gate because Bloomfield's going to draw a lot of people in just because it's the hometown team. So they had a pretty good crowd for their first game. So I think that kind of helped them kind of get rid of the jitters, for the next night. And I thought that they would come out a little slow against Bloomfield, and they did. I think it was like 11-7 after the first quarter. And you could just tell they were just kind of. It was a little bit new, a little bit, they were fired up and ready to go.
You see, I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and I said they were kind of playing down. I don't know if that's true. If you might be right that they kind of had that, that shakiness.
Yeah, I just thought they played a little tight early on, and then once they got loosened up, I think they were okay. Plus, Bloomfield would drag you down into their pace, and that's not what Risco wants to do, as we've seen in these other games. But I thought they came out just a little tight in that, and it's expected. I mean, you're in front of a big crowd. I mean, Risco doesn't play in front of that big of a crowd typically, so I mean, it's new to them.
Let's talk about Richland really quick because I feel like they've been a mixed bag. They've had their good moments, they've had their great moments, and they've had their just whatever moments. And, coming off of that Twin Rivers game where beat them by 30.
Yeah, 30. Which them picked to lose. So
I know. Well, that's the game that everybody said was going to be close. I just don't understand Richland at this point.
Richland, they came out fired up. And Twin Rivers, I'm not going to pick them to beat anybody ever again. But at the same time, Richland came out and played really, really well. And I thought they played well at times against Puxico, but then other times not so well. And then, against Kennett, Kennett was a depleted team. I thought they guarded them well, forced them into some shots that they didn't want to take. And Kennett really couldn't find any scoring. I think we're going to find out a little more about Richland on Monday night when they play Risco.
Yeah.
I like their defense. I really do. I like their defense a lot.
Their offense just confuses me.
I can't figure out what is not there offensively. I just can't figure it out. I mean, you got Williams, who's deadly from about 12 to 15 feet. Tucker Hughes, it's like they're not looking for him inside.
You got Tilly too.
You've got Tilly, who had a good game against Kennett, but I don't know. It seems like last year he was getting to the basket a lot more. This year he's kind of settling for jumpers. I don't know. And then last year Sanders would get hot from outside. I don't see him and Connors, shooting much outside. I don't know. I feel like they're just not in sync offensively yet. We've said it all year long. They're just not in sync offensively, but their defense, man, is really good. Mm-hmm. And they do, they do everything they can defensively, and they just could not handle Burchard in that semifinal. But other than that, I thought they were really good defensively.
Which I think that was part of Puxco's plan, is that they wanted Richland to focus on Burchard the entire time, and you know what, that worked. We've seen it from Richland that they've got the potential to beat any team in this tournament. And obviously, they beat Dexter. Dexter's going to the championship, so I just don't know what's not clicking. I hope it gets settled. And you're right. Once we see them play Risco, I think we're gonna alleviate a lot of those concerns, or at least just have an answer to them.
Yeah, and how about Van Buren? I mean, I know that Van Buren's out of this tournament 1-2, but were they not the most entertaining team in this tournament? Every game they played seemed to be close. They play just gritty, gutty, and I mean, that Van Wagner kid is a player. I mean, they impressed me a lot, even though they went 1-2 in this tournament. They impressed me a lot. Yeah,
speculation-wise, I would say Van Buren's the most unsung hero team of this tournament. Oh my gosh, they are so electric to watch. Every game they bring their all into. It doesn't matter who they're playing either. That game against Donovan, I had Donovan winning that game, and Donovan almost did win that game. But man, if Van Buren doesn't send teams to overtime.
Yeah, they were down 21 to Donovan in the second half, and still came back and won that game. They just will not give up. They just keep coming at you. That Van Wagner, man, he's impressive. He's 6'1", plays a lot bigger than that.
If he doesn't make all tournament, that is the snub of all snubs, because that kid deserves it.
Yeah, I think he's a shoe-in for all. I think he's one of him and Burchard. I think they're just a couple of shoe-ins. I mean, you just go ahead and just mark, go ahead and give them their medal now. But yeah, they're just such a fun team to watch. They don't defend the greatest. I mean, and that's with several teams. Risco's another one I put in that category. They just don't guard as well as I think they're going to need to guard. They're obviously, that's something that they need to work on as the season goes along. But when you get up and down the floor and score, and I mean, they played, 94-89. That's the 8th highest scoring game ever in the tournament. I mean, so they made that top 10 list there. And but that was a game that just, I mean, it was like both teams just were not giving up that game, and finally, just like Van Buren just finally, I think, ran out of gas at the end.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. It looked like it was just a couple takeaways that they couldn't deal with, and then Risco had 2 points off of free throws that I feel like just really put the dagger in it. But man, that's such a good game, such an all-time classic. Mm-hmm. I said it immediately, as just like Risco has earned their spot in this tournament. And I think that just encapsulates it, that these are two teams, coming off of losing games, making such headway that I didn't expect. Yeah.
And I mean, how about a 5th place bracket in this tournament that has 3 state ranked teams? I mean, that's
crazy.
You don't see that every day. I mean, that's a heck of a 5th place bracket. And, it stinks that Van Buren's out.
Yeah.
But man, they were a fun team to watch for the 3 games they were in it. And now you get the Richland Risco Class 1 matchup that everybody's kind of been wanting to see. That's going to be, and that's your 5th place game.
Yeah.
And I think that gym is going to be packed for that 5th place game.
Well, how does it feel knowing that Stoddard County is just playing in all 4 of those games on championship night?
Yeah, I said before the season, I thought Stoddard County was going to be tough this year. And this is the first all Stoddard County championship since '65, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it was Bloomfield Dexter that year, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it's a loaded Stoddard County conference this year, because you throw in Woodland, who's playing in the Cape tournament and has put on a pretty good performance up there and made the semifinals, and then you got Advance, who pulled an upset, Bell City, who won a game up there, and I mean that's a tough 8 teams in that tournament. I have fun seeding that one.
Yeah, that one. I mean, I feel like we're gonna get a snapshot of kind of like what that tournament might end up being championship night. Maybe the players are going to be a little bit different, but who knows? But if trends continue as they are, we might be looking at, a repeat game.
It might be. I don't know. But I tell you what, I think Bernie, if they can get healthy, are going to have something to say about that. Woodland will have something to say about that. It's going to be that is going to be a tournament that people are going to need to kind of keep an eye on this year.
Just kind of talking about, the games upcoming in BCT, which one are you looking the most forward to?
Well, I mean, obviously the championship. I mean, that's the one that you kind of look to. We really didn't talk about the Dexter East Prairie game, but I think that was kind of a surprise for most people. I think a lot of people thought East Prairie was going to come in and win that game, and man, I think that Dexter again played well. I mean, Coach Allen coached them up, and I don't understand why East Prairie didn't press Dexter more. But at the same time, Dexter handled everything that East Prairie threw at them and was able to get that win. And I think of all the disappointing games in the tournament, I think East Prairie was the most disappointed after this game. I thought they really thought that they could win this game. And fun fact, I don't think East Prairie has beaten Dexter since '88.
Oh, wow.
They used to play in the regular season. I think in '88 they beat Dexter in December of that year. I was in high school. I think that was the last time that they've beaten Dexter, and that's a long time ago. And Dexter just kind of did what they needed to do, hit the shots they needed to hit, and got the stops late that they needed, and were able to put that game away. And so I'm looking at that Dexter Puxico game. I think that's going to be a great game. But tell me that Richland and Risco is not going to be a fun game too. I'm definitely looking forward to that game. Definitely going to have eyes on that. That again, I think that place is going to be packed for that 5:30 game.
Yeah. Just to touch on what you said about Dexter and East Prairie, one thing I think for Dexter is that, you want to talk about momentum. Going into the half, they were up just a little bit, and it's just okay, it's a 5-point lead. Can you hold that against East Prairie? And I thought some adjustments being made for East Prairie in the locker room probably would have, set that straight.
Yeah.
Dexter just never lost steam. And I think there's something to be said about the environment that they're playing in too, is because, Bloomfield is a second home to them.
It is.
So, you got your crowd all right there, easy access to you, no problem cheering you on. And I think once you start getting that swing going, there was just nothing East Prairie could do to, step back up.
Yeah, it was just like East Prairie couldn't get in a groove. It's just like they just and I think part of it too is East Prairie plays that up tempo style. They're up and down the floor, breakneck pace, and it's hard to do that 3 nights in a row. I don't care if you're high school kids or not. To do that 3 nights in a row is tough. And I think maybe a little bit of fatigue got in them a little bit, and a little bit of, hey, I think we should beat this Dexter team. I think we should beat them, and maybe that was playing into it too. But I tell you what, I think I felt like seeing them walk off the floor after that game, I felt like they were just extremely disappointed. And, it's tough because this is probably their best chance they ever had to win it. I mean, I guess last year since they made the championship, but I thought they were my pick to win it. And I thought they had all the tools to do it. And Dexter just stepped up and played a great game.
Yeah, it's, this is very kind of different cast, but this kind of feels like last year of just we expected Puxico to be in the final, and then they lost out. And so for East Prairie, it does suck for them, because it's just I expected them to win this game, and I'm sure their emotions are very high about it. Wouldn't want to be Bernie come championship night.
Yeah, either that or East Prairie doesn't want to be there and no shows.
Which I don't want that to happen, because that's never good.
And I don't think that's going to happen. Sometimes it does. You see that a lot in the state championships. You lose a tough game that you expected to win, in the semifinals have to play that third place game, and it's just man, I just don't want to. This isn't what we wanted. This isn't what. And I think Bernie's going to be fired up to be there for sure. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see what East Prairie team. If the East Prairie team comes out that we know, I think they have a lot of success. I mean, I think they're a team that can really give Bernie some issues. At the same time, if they come out and they're kind of disappointed and they're not not fully focused, I mean, Bernie can win that game for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, Bernie likes to play people slow with East Prairie running such an up-tempo offense. Once you start to slow them down.
Yeah, that's two completely different styles right there, and we'll see which style wins out. And you'll know. I think you'll know real early which way this game's going. But just by the style that's being played.
Yeah, I just don't think Bernie's got that explosive of an offense. They can't really build up those points like they need to. I think that's going to be the difference maker, if anything. You can play a team very slow as you want to, but if you're down by 5 the entire game and you can't build that back up, there's just really nothing you can do.
East Prairie's size is going to cause them some problems too inside. I mean, they just, I don't know how many. First off, Johnson, he's not 6'4". I don't care what that book says. He's about 6'6", and he plays big, and then Shoemaker too inside. Those are tough guys inside that very athletic too. So. I think that's going to be a problem. Their long arms are going to be a problem, trying to get the ball inside. So like I said, we'll see which teams show up. But, I think, Bernie could have their work cut out for them. But, look, Coach Long can draw it up as well as anybody as far as, especially defensively. I mean, he'll have that team ready to go. And so I anticipate that's going to be a good game too.
Yeah, I mean, for Bernie, this is just another experience game. Yeah. Just, take whatever, learn about these different offenses and what you can take away from it. And I think that's, honestly, it's not a very big pressure situation for Bernie. I think it's a great time for them, like I said, to just learn.
Yeah, go out and have fun. It's going to be a big crowd, and just go out and have fun and try to get a win and just like I said, build on that experience for the next few years and so good luck to both those teams. I think that's going to be a good game.
So there was another Christmas tournament happening at the same time.
The Cape tournament. Yep. I tell you what, they kind of had the upsets, but they weren't upsets, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I think we both said on here that we wouldn't shock us to see Scott City or Woodland make the semifinals, and they both did. Scott City, boy, they hammered Notre Dame. I mean, it was a 17-point game, 80-63. They hammered them. And played a really good game against Jackson, but just couldn't pull it out in the end. Jackson won by 10. And then Woodland beat Charleston in a great game up there, and we thought that might happen. And then Woodland just didn't have anything left in the tank against Cape Central. Cape Central is just so athletic. I think Cape Central wins this tournament up there against Jackson. Jackson's not been overly impressive. I mean, they struggled against Chaffee in the quarterfinals. But man, I'm actually more interested in the third place game that's between Scott City and Woodland than I am the championship game. And I'm sure that championship game is going to be good, but that Scott City Woodland game in that third place, that's a potential Class 3 District 2 title preview, and I'm very anxious to see how those two teams match up against each other. Yeah,
we've been putting Scott City and Woodland in our top tens like consistently, and top 3, I think. So to see them play is kind of a dream come true, just because, Scott City has worked so hard. They played so well. They've got Jackson Gloth back. Don't know how much of a playmaker he is for them right now, but you would assume it's not a detriment. And as for Woodland, like we've been saying, kind of this whole season, that Woodland's like one of the best teams in Stoddard County. So to watch these two teams play each other, I mean, that's going to be great.
Yeah, and I think whoever comes out of this game in this district, I think they have a chance to make a run in Class 3. I think they're going to be, probably a favorite to maybe make it to the Final Four. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at these two teams as like, hey, this is a preview, and how do you match up? And man, I want to see a good game. I want to see a game that goes down to the wire so we can see it again. But yeah, Scott City, both teams are very talented, and that's a lot of fun. You have Orion and Leopold in the consolation bracket, and they're kind of some small schools that are enjoying their time on the Show Me Center court, and then you got Notre Dame Charleston, which is usually your championship or third place game. They're going to be playing for 5th place. So I mean, it's kind of your normal cast of characters there, but I think the Scott City Woodland has really. Those upsets kind of gave a little bit of extra to that tournament for that night for sure.
Yeah, if you're going to check out one game from that tournament, I'd say that'd be one to pencil in.
Absolutely.
So just to kind of backtrack, just because we didn't have a show on Thursday, what did you think about that Sykeston game against Principia?
Sykeston, they played well, but I mean, those are games that they need. Those are games that they that they need the tough games, and sometimes a loss isn't the worst thing. I mean, that's the type of game that's going to help you come districts and playoff times. And I see other teams that are playing, tougher teams, but I don't know if necessarily some of the teams they play are the tough teams they need to play. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a tough team that Sikeston needed to play. They're a team that's very athletic. They can get up and down the floor. They're a team that is very physical. And I think that's something that Sikeston was needing, and so whenever they come down the line, I think that's going to be a benefit for them. And then of course they went to the St. Dominic tournament this week and kind of rolled through that. PJ Farmer was a little banged up. He wasn't 100% against Principia. He sat out their first round game. Murray missed the first round game. They were both back for the semifinals and finals and played well. And they beat a Timberland team who's very athletic too, but kind of beat them by 18 or so. Kind of pretty much had it in hand most of the game. So I mean they're playing well, but that Principia game I think is going to go a long way, even with the loss, go a long way for them come districts.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a testing game that Sikeston needed, like you said, to be down basically by 10 points the entire fair. I mean that must be kind of a tough pill to swallow. It's definitely going to change, how you look at some teams. I don't know. Obviously, Greg Hollifield penciled that one in because he knew that the team probably needed it. And, I think for Sikeston, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the 10th year in a row they've won this tournament they were just in?
Oh, something like that. I can't.
Or it's like the 10th time in 15 years.
I think it's 10th time in like 15 years, something like that. I mean, they've dominated this tournament up there for the most part. I mean, but yeah, they lost it a few years ago. I know. I think they had a little spell like 2 or 3 years when they didn't win it, but I think they made the championship game. So I think I honestly can't remember when they didn't make the championship game of that tournament up there. And like I said, they've pretty much dominated it, but. At the same time, I mean, they've had some really good teams up there. Holt's usually pretty good. Timberland's pretty good. So there's some good teams up there that play in that tournament, kind of give them a test. And I think they like it because it's kind of a bonding experience. You're up there for 3 days. Mm-hmm. I think they stay up there a couple nights. So it's a good bonding experience for your team. And usually they come out of that tournament playing a lot better. That's typically what happens. And so it's a tournament that they kind of use for more than just the 3 games. I think it's like I said, a bonding thing for the team and just to kind of keep everybody together and learn a little bit about each other. So I mean, but they've done well in that tournament, and it's a lot better tournament than the Poplar Bluff Showdown. That's for sure.
You sound like you have some opinions about it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Poplar Bluff Showdown. Look, it used to be a great tournament. Always some really good teams over there, but the way they kind of rig it up. I mean, we're Poplar Bluff kind of having a pretty good path to that final. You get what you get the other night with Vashon beating them 81-26 or whatever it was, and that's not fun for Poplar Bluff. I don't think that's fun for the Poplar Bluff fans, and I don't think that's fun for Vashon, honestly. When you put your 2 best teams in the tournament on the same side of the bracket, I mean, there's a reason you seed these tournaments. And we may not always agree with the way they're seeded, but they usually seed them where you're not having a huge blowout in a championship game. Mm-hmm. And, some people from Poplar Bluff wonder why the Poplar Bluff Showdown's irrelevant, and that's why. I mean, first off, you have no local teams in it besides Poplar Bluff, so your crowds are low unless Poplar Bluff's playing. And then you do it this way. And I understand if you want to make it where Poplar Bluff wins that first game, you kind of set them up where they have a pretty good win in that first one. But I'm like, don't put the 2 best teams in the same side of the bracket. I mean, I just I don't know. I just don't take that tournament very seriously anymore.
It does take the competitive nature out of something when you know that your 2 seed isn't your 2 seed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's up to tournament management at that point.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what they choose to do. I mean, that's fine, but don't complain whenever people don't pay attention to your tournament and pay attention to the other tournaments around the area that are a lot more competitive.
Which, I mean, I'll say this, once Christmas time rolls around, you have a lot of competition for good tournaments.
Yeah. And obviously with 16 teams in the Southeast Missourian tournament, 16 teams in the Bloomfield Christmas tournament, that's going to attract the most attention because that's where most of the fans are turning their eyes to. So, a few times they've had, Lionel Sykeston played in the showdown a few times. I think New Madrid played in the showdown a few times. But for the most part, it's not a local tournament. It's a tournament that is made of really, really good basketball teams that are really fun to watch. It's just up against some other local tournaments that just aren't going to do it. But I promise you, a Vashon Staley championship game would draw a lot more attention than a Vashon Poplar Bluff, at least from the area, I would think. But maybe not. What do I know? But I'll sit here and enjoy my Bloomfield Christmas Tournament and have a blast there.
Yeah, I mean, to your credit, when you have two of the best teams that you can think of in a tournament, you want to see them play each other, and it just kind of sucks when that doesn't happen. But regardless, I've heard some people say like, "Oh, we'd like to expand the Bloomfield Christmas Tournament into 32 teams."
Oh, let's not do that.
Oh, I think it'd be amazing. Not for me.
I think that's almost too much.
I already do 26 games in a week. Way too much. But
yeah, that's a lot of basketball in a week, a lot. And they kind of do that up in the Mineral Area tournament. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but they have I think it's a 16-team boys, 16-team girls, and that's a lot of basketball over a 4 or 5 day span. And then what teams are you going to bring in? Well, what other teams are you going to bring? And I think it's perfect the way it is. Sometimes expansion isn't always best, college football. I don't know. I really love it at 16. I hope they keep it that way. But I understand the want for a 32 team.
16 is like you said, it's comfortable. It doesn't feel like you have to strain a lot to know where teams are seated first off and where you're picking teams from. Yeah. I think BCT's got it kind of down pat. I would like to see maybe not more of a, not more conferences come in, but just like more, I don't want to say standard. I feel like there's a lot of starter county in it, which that's where it's located. Mm-hmm. So obviously they're going to pull teams from there. But I'd like to see kind of more consolidation of conferences, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and typically your starter county conference isn't as, it seems like you always have your Dexter and Bernie who are real competitive, and then your Bloomfield will have a year here or there, Puxco here or there, they'll be good. But for the most part, those are not the Richland, here or there. They usually it's rare that they're all making, have really good teams at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that's, and honestly, like one of the last times I remember that was back in '89, whenever Puxco won it. Bloomfield had a good team back in that 88, 89, those 2 years. And you had Richland had some decent teams, around that area, 89, 90. I mean, so you had some really good starter county teams. Bernie was always good. But really it's kind of taking you back to the late 80s, early 90s, whenever you had a lot of good starter county teams. Yeah.
Do you think this tournament, how does it scale with, some of the tournaments you've seen in the past?
It's one of the most competitive I've seen. I'm very anxious to see this championship game. Fun fact: the last time that the first two nights of the tournament went as seeded was '89, and Puxco won it that year. So we'll see if history repeats itself again this year. Going to have to get your pick too on that game before we get off here. But at the same time, there's been some really, really good teams in the Bloomfield Christmas Tournament over the years, but I think this is probably one of the most competitive, especially in recent memory.
So when you say pick for that game, are you asking me to pick with my heart or pick with my head?
Well, I don't know. You pick however you want to pick.
My head says Puxico. My heart and sweatshirt say Dexter.
So I'd say you're wearing a Dexter sweatshirt right now. So I'm going to say you're probably leaning that way. But I think if Puxco can pressure the guards for Dexter early and not wait till you're down 18, East Prairie, I think they can win that game 8-10 points. But they're going to have somebody besides Burchard step up, and somebody's going to have to really play. I really like the defense that Cason Long plays. I really like his defense, but they need somebody offensively to step up, whether it be Jet Hancock or Zimmerman or whoever. You've got to have someone else step up and help Burchard, because I don't think he's going to be able to do it all himself against a team like Dexter. At the same time, Dexter's going to have to find offense too, because Puxco's going to get after him defensively. My pick is kind of like you. My gut is telling me Dexter, but my head is telling me Puxco, and I'm tired of going with my gut. So I'm going to say Puxco wins this game. and gets the tournament for the first time since '89.
As far as Dexter's offense goes, I mean, I don't want to say it's pretty standard, but we do see kind of similarities from game to game. What I think is probably going to happen is, Tucker Temple's hits a 3, gains momentum, and, they may have a 5-point lead somewhere in the second half. Whether Puxico can come back and just rally behind that, I mean, who knows? I don't. If you would have asked me 3 nights ago, if this game happened, who would win it? I'd say Puxico all the way.
Yeah.
But I've seen Dexter adapt now. Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of the biggest detriments that we saw, going into this tournament, is that they came off with 3 losses that, it's games that like you should have probably won. Yeah. Maybe not against Jackson, but definitely against Richland. You had ample opportunity to win that game.
Yeah, they should have. I felt they should have beat Poplar Bluff and Richland. I thought they should have won both those games, but they didn't. They've had trouble closing games, but I think that has helped them in this tournament. I said on the broadcast of the Risco game, they played a lot of close games, and that helps them, against a team like Risco, who's not really played as many close games. And Dexter may not have closed those close games out all the time, but playing in those close games, you learn how to you don't panic, and you kind of learn eventually how to close those games out. And Dexter has been able to close the close games out, and so. That's a benefit for them. Puxico has played some close games. They played Chadwick, they played Thayer. Won one, lost one, but I mean they know how to play those close games as well. I mean, so I think that's kind of a push. But again, I think it comes down to guard play for Dexter. And has anybody improved as much as Elijah Ibrahim? I don't even know if that's how you say his last name. I've heard it like 4 different ways, but but he has just really improved.
No, he made himself into such a playmaker.
Yeah, in this tournament, I mean, he's improved just a ton. And then of course Devin Turnbull has played great too. And then of course I already talked about Geatley. Those, and then they're just
and Sepulvedo,
yeah.
He makes himself shown in key moments where he needs to be.
And that's the thing with Dexter is they are 5, 6, 7 guys deep that make Carter Stone makes plays off the bench and Anisser makes some plays. They're all these guys that they all contribute and they all are needed. Like every game they are needed to contribute something. And so you're not just relying on one guy. Makes it tough on the defense and makes it really tough on that Puxico defense. So we'll see how it comes out. I think it's going to be a really good game. I hope it goes down to the wire.
Yeah, you want to talk about improvements. I mean, I look at it from just a mindset because last year I kind of went in with that, Dexter needs to improve. They're a young team. They need to improve. They need to get, I saw a lot of agitation and frustration out of Dexter last year. Like they expected to be better than they were. And I think a lot of that's been cleaned up. You don't see as many just like moments where you can tell players pouting. He's not slapping the floor. He's not slapping another player. And that's the improvement that you need to make yourself a good team. Don't go in with the expectation that you are meant to win games because I feel like Dexter comes in with that kind of haughty attitude. That's why a lot of people don't like them. And you know what? That's a fair assessment. I understand it. I'm from there. I know what people are like. So to see them kind of turn around and, play teams like you're supposed to play them, don't take them as like easy games. I think that's what shows improvement.
Yeah, I think Dexter plays well in that underdog role, and they are the underdog going into this game. I think most people think Puxico should win this game, and maybe they go in and blow them out 15, 20 points.
It's possible.
It's very possible. I mean, Puxico has that ability. They just have not shown it in this tournament where I think they're going to blow anybody out like that, in this championship game. At the same time, you look at their scores haven't been close, and I'm sitting here talking about it. I haven't thought they look great. And so that just shows what I think they can look like, over the course of a season. It kind of reminds me of Dexter football. We were a little bit critical of Dexter football at times and thought they could look better. And man, they, this Puxico team kind of reminds me of that. But I want to see Puxico clicking on all cylinders, on Monday night.
Yeah, and you might think that we haven't talked about Puxico enough in this, but that's just because the expectation on them. They should win top seed. They should win top seed. They're top seed. They should win out this entire tournament. And, like you said, their scores, it's not been close most of the time. But I've heard that consistently. Everybody said they're not playing their full potential. I bet the players think that too, is that we're not playing to our full potential.
Yeah, and obviously you want to be playing at your full potential come February because they've got a really tough district.
Yeah,
and so you want to be playing at your top, come February. But wouldn't you like to play at your top potential in this championship game whenever all eyes are going to be on you? I think that's and hopefully they are. And, again, Burchard has been just phenomenal this tournament. I think he's the best player in this tournament, but he needs some help. And I think he's going to need some help in this game. And we'll see what Puxco players step up. And I think they will. And like I said, I think Puxco wins this game. I think it's close though. I think Coach Allen, he can just coach basketball, just flat out coach. He's going to have them ready to go. And I think this is going to be, I hope this game can cap this tournament off the way it's been the whole tournament is just with a lot of good close games and just a fun game.
Yeah, I think that's a general sentiment at this point. I feel like Puxico has, you know what? I don't know anymore. I was going to say Puxico has the hearts and minds on their side, but maybe that's not so true. Some people might be rooting for Dexter at this point. Like you said, underdogs make a great story. Mm-hmm. I can't give a score prediction. I've got no clue, but I think Burchard's going to score a lot of points is what I think. He's, not to like pass over his achievements in this tournament. He's had 2 31-point games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he scored over 30 at least twice. So,
absolutely cract.
Yeah. He's a heck of a player and can get points whenever he wants them.
And he's a junior.
Yeah,
and he's not going away.
Yeah, we'll see him again next year. But yeah, he's a kid that can get points whenever he wants them. Has a great outside shot. Can get to the rim. Very good defender as well. Like I said, I think he's the best player in this tournament. And I think that Puxco is very lucky to have him. And I think that, he's going to just get better and better. And we'll see if Dexter can stop him.
Yeah. And, for one of the first times, I feel like all tournament team is going to be just so, like, you could shot call it from the start of the tournament who's going to be standing, like, on that floor. And it's so awesome to see every team just bring that A game.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's going to be a tough picking 12 players on that team.
I know.
Good luck with that. I mean, obviously some of them are just givens, but then, there's going to be probably 6 or 7 that are just, you just know. And then the other 6 or so are going to be like, well, have fun picking those from those. Cause there's some really, really good players in this tournament. Who's going to get
snubbed at this point?
Yeah. There's some really, really good players in this tournament. And, there's been some great performances and, I'm like you though, Elijah Van Wagner and Landon Burchard. If those two are not on the list, I'm protesting right now.
All right, I think that's going to do it for us. This has been a great tournament, but I probably need to rest my voice at this point. I'm sure as much as the players are enjoying the day off, I am too. So, Dave, do you have any final thoughts?
No, just can't wait to this championship night. And no show in the middle of the week coming up this week. And then we'll have another show next, for next Monday. And then we'll be back on our two a week, right?
Yep. Sounds good to me.
All right.
Thanks for listening. This has been the SEMO Sports Zone.